Okay. Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals proposed rulemaking hearing. Sorry, rulemaking session for affordable housing, fast track, and City of Yes. Why is it all? It is. Oh.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Just having some technical difficulties borrowing a hearing room today. Today is April 1st. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals proposed rulemaking to adopt rules of practice and procedures to implement the city's affordable housing fast track and City of Yes. Today, we will be discussing the 2025 New York City Charter reforms, the BSA's proposed rulemaking, which includes the 2025 charter revisions, as well as zoning resolution amendments pursuant to City of Yes, and then next steps. So in 2025, the New York City Charter Revision Commission had proposed 6 ballot proposals to propose changes to the New York State Constitution and the New York City Charter. Those were on the back of everyone's ballot. Sorry, my screen. Of those 6, 4 approved New York City Charter amendments were passed relating to housing and land use. Relevantly here, we will be discussing number 2, fast track affordable housing. Now, fast track affordable housing, the charter proposal that was adopted was a 2-part proposal that was approved by voters to fast track certain affordable housing projects. The first half is fast track zoning action at the Board of Standards and Appeals. As part of that ballot proposal, there was also city planning proposals that were also adopted. We will not be discussing those today. The New York City Charter was revised on December 2nd, 2025. It has codified these new processes into the charter as section 666-A and 668D1. New York City Charter 666-A now states that in accordance with this section, the board may modify the application or interpretation of use, bulk, or parking regulations of the zoning resolution for a building to be developed, preserved, or converted in whole or in part for affordable housing, as such term is defined in subdivision A of section 16A, provided that the board makes these following findings. These findings are: 1, that the building is or will be owned in whole or in part by a company that has been organized exclusively to develop housing projects for persons of low income. 2, I'm going to paraphrase, the building is located in a zoning district that allows residential use. 3, in coordination and consultation with the Commissioner of HPD, the building as proposed is consistent with applicable affordable housing design and development standards, and such building couldn't be developed without modifying applicable use, bulk, or parking regulations. The proposal will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. And then 5th, under the conditions and safeguards imposed, the hazards and disadvantages to the community are outweighed by the advantages to be derived. Additionally, like every board decision, the written resolution must set forth each required finding of the approval. Additionally, the board may prescribe conditions or restrictions to minimize any adverse effects. And then separately under 668D1, the fast track part, these applications are subject to a time clock. Like all applications before the Board of Standards and Appeals, there is a 60-day period for the community board to have an opportunity to review and submit a recommendation to the board. After that 60-day period, the board must hold its first hearing on the application within 30 days. So within 90 days of filing the application, the board's holding its first hearing. Where the board finds that the findings can be met, the board may take a final action on the hearing no later than 30 days after. In the alternative, where the board determines that the findings have not been met, it may hold one second hearing and take a final action within 60 days of that first hearing. In summary, this new process allows the board to approve eligible projects within a specific timeline, providing a 60-day timeframe for local community boards, simultaneous with a 90-day review time at BSA. This is a graph chart demonstrating the procedure. An application gets filed. Simultaneously, it's going to the community board and borough president for their 60-day review window while it's undergoing review at BSA. Prior to its initial hearing, which will be no later than 30 days after the conclusion of the 60-day window of the CB, the board may close and render a decision within 30 days of that initial hearing, or it may schedule this for a continued hearing and render its final decision within 60 days of that initial hearing. So what we're doing here today, what we're proposing, everything that we've just discussed, 666A and 668D1 have been adopted. They exist in the charter. The board now must adopt a procedure to incorporate and implement 66A and 668D1 into its rules. This rulemaking today proposes the how to the substantive charter rule that was adopted by the City of New York. So collectively, the board has named this process Targeted Affordable Housing Projects, or TAP, TAHP. So the board is proposing rules today twofold: one under the TAHP charter revisions and two under City of Yes. The proposed rule changes relevant to the charter revision include: first, adding and recognizing within the board's rules that it has jurisdiction under 666A and 668D1, just stating in the board's rules that this applies. The second is adding these actions to the board's A calendar as opposed to the BZ calendar. These are not zoning actions. It's not an application where its jurisdiction is derived under the zoning resolution, which is appropriate for the BZ calendar. So this falls appropriately into the A calendar. And then 1-06.3 would be defining and designated what the filing period would be for these applications. Second, under City of Yes, the board has also proposed to add to its rules recognition of certain City of Yes provisions that were added, specifically 11-46 and 11-47 of the zoning resolution, which permit an application that was filed prior to City of Yes enactments to proceed under the zoning resolution that existed at the time it was filed. Accordingly as well, City of Yes modified the enumeration for specific special permits within the zoning resolution. Some of those special permits had previously been designated by the board as a type 2 action under seeker. Some of those special permits have been modified and moved, and some of them have been renumbered wholly. The board proposes to modify its type 2 list to update those sections. So the next step is the rulemaking text is available online. Thank you all to the members of the public who have submitted comments to the board. The board has reviewed all of those comments. The board will discuss the comments received, and the board will make available to the public an opportunity to discuss their comments to the board's proposed rulemaking. The board has an opportunity now to review the public comments in light of the proposal, and then schedule this for another action to discuss whether the board will be making any modified changes to the proposal, or whether it will be adopting this rule within at least 30 days. The board will schedule another hearing. This is the rule text that is available online. I'll leave it here. Actually, I'm going to stop the share. And at this point, I will turn it to, and one last thing. Again, thank you to the members of the public who did submit comments. We did receive many comments during the public comment period of the rulemaking. Some of these comments did discuss sister agency, City Planning Commission, Charter Revision Commission proposals, specifically with respect to the methodology at city planning. While that was under the same ballot initiative, it's not something that is really necessarily relevant to the board's proposed rulemaking, but thank you for those comments. We did get comments that collectively raised concerns regarding involvement of elected and community officials in BSA's fast track process, the potential for impacts resulting from increased density and other seeker-related impacts, concerns regarding recognizing affordability and neighborhood character at a local level. There have been concerns raised that ensuring that there are no unnecessary hurdles to the creation of affordable housing, but also all at the same time ensuring that there are adequate safeguards and oversight with respect to the requirements. We also received a comment that the board's fast track process should apply to all forms of housing. So again, thank you to the public for your comments. And I now turn it to the board if they would like to make any statements in this review session before we go to the public hearing.
First of all, I want to thank can you hear me? Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay. First of all, I want to thank my BSA team, specifically our general counsel, Chase Vine, and our rest of the council member team, including Assistant Deputy Counsel Sarpong and Associate Counsel. Okay, I'm blanking out. Not Michael Donaldson.
Michael Velez.
Michael Velez, yeah. You pointed towards it. I was like, no, that's not, I'm just blanking out. I'm sorry. And Ms. Benke with regards to the environmental documents and everybody involved in this process. We have been working tirelessly on this with not only with the BSA team, but also have been engaged with other city agencies that will be much involved as we go forward with the 666A, including HPD. And I'm very excited that the charter revision did come to, did get approved, and it is fully active. And as General Counsel Vine mentioned, that of the 4 that were related to housing and land use, there's only one, I would say, subpart of item number 2 that is only within BSA purview. And that is a part of the fast track affordable housing, which we're calling it targeted affordable housing project at BSA. And all I would say is that while BSA has facilitated affordable housing over the years through a variance process, the fast track through 666A, while it borrows some of the features of the BSA procedure of the variance and other procedures, it ensures a faster turnaround for projects that meets the specific findings that are clearly outlined in the charter. So we are not, the findings are codified in the charter, and that's the requirement of the BSA to abide by. What has been outlined in terms of the community board review process, that is also in the charter. And it just also happens to be a process that is absolutely consistent with all BSA applications that comes before the board, whether that's a variance, a special permit, a special order calendar, or even an appeals application. So what that does is that it requires the members of the board, that is the 5 commissioners that we are here and our staff, to review these applications simultaneously while the community board and the elected officials are also reviewing these documents. And our hearing is always held after the community board and the elected officials have reviewed and provided their feedback, and based on which we hold our hearing. So the information that we get from the community boards and the elected officials before our first hearing is very critical, and it has been very helpful as per our practice at the BSA with all other projects. So I think our process has been very, which has been in place, I would say, at least definitely since 1961. And as you know, this entity, Board of Standards and Appeal, has been here for over 100 years. So this is a very well-trodden practice that has been done, where we do listen to the community board elected officials' documents, as very clearly indicated in the summary that General Counsel Vine provided. And I do applaud and I thank everybody's participation in providing this information and giving us much to think about. But as I said, there are certain things, there are 5 points, there are findings that has been outlined in the charter, including the timeline, which we really cannot change. If there are other things that can be modified and can ensure a faster turnaround, which is the intent of this rulemaking, we will do so without sacrificing the quality, without sacrificing the input of the community, and ensuring a development project that would get built faster. With that in place, I also want to remind everybody that there are some checks and balance we try to front load so that we can ensure that subsequently down the road, it would not result in a need for an amendment of the drawing, which amendment of the approved set of plans that BSA would be sending to DOB. So, and to HPD or an agency that would be funding these affordable housing projects, because that would further delay the possibility of developing, preserving, or converting these developments for affordable housing. So with that in mind, we have to ensure we provide certain amount of checks and balance upfront that ensures a quicker, faster deliverable for affordable housing in the manner that was reviewed and was consistent with the principles and policies and regulations that have been set in the 668. Thank you. I also recognize that today we have another hearing on rulemaking. There's a city planning related hearing that is going on at city planning. And I will keep the record open for today, because we may have people, representatives from different organizations walk in or call in. And so we will make sure we give everybody the chance to voice their concerns. And again, as General Counsel mentioned, that we are going to keep, this would be continuing. We will go back and review the documents and consider and look at what we are proposing. So you have again another few weeks to provide your response and feedback to what we have proposed so far. Okay. So should we go to the public and see if anybody wants to? Does anybody from the commission want to add to any statement? Okay. Let me see.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the public hearing. This is the proposed rulemaking public hearing for affordable housing fast track in the city of Yes. Should you wish to comment, besides appearing in person, you may dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you'll enter the webinar ID number 160003-6538 and press the pound sign. At the next prompt after that, you'll press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you'll press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute if you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you're recognized, you'll have 3 minutes to,
3
3
minutes.
minutes to state your comments. What happened? Oh, sorry.
We'll first recognize Mr. Lobel.
I just want, I do see another person who has raised a hand, Chiang. Please wait your turn. First, we will hear from Mr. Lobel, and then we will ask you to speak. Please hold on.
Thank you, Mr. Lobel. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. Good morning, Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC. So in June 2022, the city produced the Housing Our Neighbors, a Blueprint for Housing and Homelessness text, a study which demonstrated that one of the foremost goals of the city should be accelerating and increasing capacity for new housing supply citywide. With the recent charter amendments, and as a longtime practitioner before the BSA, I would urge the board to accept this mandate that has been granted to the board by no fewer than a majority of New Yorkers voting on this ballot proposal. We have had an opportunity now to consult with many architects who address issues in terms of affordable housing and who work with HPD. In fact, we've spoken to architects who have been responsible for the generation of no fewer than 40,000 units that have gone through the HPD approval process. And so these comments are made not only as a practitioner of zoning law, but also as someone who now has some background in terms of the HPD approval process. And so the main points that I would make are 3. The first is with regards to the consultation which is required with HPD. I had an opportunity yesterday to submit a letter to the board in terms of what we feel that HPD consultation not should look like, but what it in fact must look like in terms of the text of the charter amendment. And so the quote in terms of 666A is that as determined in consultation with the Commissioner of Housing Preservation and Development, the building is consistent with applicable affordable housing design and development standards, etc. And so this is an important point to make, which is that there are sections of the zoning resolutions and sections of the charter which mandate reports and studies from an agency. This is not one of those. Consultation with HPD here should be sufficient, and we should not make applicants go and get a letter from HPD, which we understand now will add months to the process. This is similarly the case with the DOB objection. There's been some commentary, including in our letter, in terms of whether or not a DOB objection is needed. We are not varying the zoning resolution here. We are proposing modifications to buildings based upon findings which the BSA must make. Without an express requirement of a DOB objection, we should not impose this on applicants, which will again cause months of delay. And finally, we would ask that HPD and DOB be given specific authorization and agency collaboration so that the procedures are set in place and that any review which eventually is required is done in an expedited manner, and that applicants are able to access special divisions and special departments within these agencies so as to expedite the opportunity to bring affordable housing. This is a dire need of the city, and we are extremely serious in asking the board to realize its full power here and to not burden this what would be an otherwise expedited process. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
I apologize if I'm not pronouncing the last name Cheong. I'm going to let this person join as a panelist. Please accept.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'd like to thank the commissioners for their consistent, detailed, and thorough work in reviewing the variance applications that come before our community boards. I'm a
I'm
member
so
of
sorry. Could you just state your name and
My
your-
name is Sue-Ann Chong. I'm a member of Community Board 9 in Brooklyn, although I'm testifying here on my own behalf today. The first thing that would be really helpful to us as community board members is if these applications could be cross-posted to the city's zoning application portal. It is essentially an alternative to a ULURP process for housing and affordable housing. And in terms of comprehensive planning for us, we'd like to be able to see which applications have a variance, and we'd like to be able to see all of the variance application materials. Currently, we only get access to the materials that are for our particular board, but for the public to be able to track the results of these applications and how they proceed, we think that it would be very helpful if this were posted in the zoning application portal. I've submitted more extensive testimony in writing, but I just wanted to highlight the concerns that we've had. First of all, in terms of the definition of affordable housing, it isn't defined specifically of low income housing that isn't specifically defined in the charter. It should match the HUD definition, which is for persons at 80% of AMI and below. That doesn't necessarily match the state requirements for HDFCs, but we think it should match the HUD definition. Second, we do, in terms of the neighborhood character findings, we understand, that this is something that's in the charter that will be, up to you to interpret. But we want to stress that neighborhood character should be based on the actual built environment. And there are many areas where in our district where the zoning is not correct. So we don't want that to be based simply on the existing zoning. We also feel it's very important that environmental review continue for all applications. That's been extremely helpful to us in determining what the impact of these developments would be and how they can be mitigated. And finally, in terms of, the consultation with HPD, we think that there needs to be a requirement for fairly specific answers from HPD as to how the proposed modification is required to meet the affordable housing design standards and financing standards. If it's possible, we want to know why, if an application is asking to double the amount of square footage, why that is necessary, according to HPD. And again, I've submitted fuller testimony in writing, but just wanted to highlight some of the things that are most important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to note for the public, all board decisions, approvals, denials are recorded on our board's website. You can email the board for any copies of resolutions. Any approval by the board is actually recorded in ACRIS or the Richmond County Clerk as an action against property, similar to a deed. And we also are in BIS and DOB's BIS system on a property profile. BSA approvals and actions are reflected in DOB's property profiles as a BSA decision as a action on their property. But we do like to be everywhere we can be, and looking into Zola is somewhere where we're gonna try to get. We have other members in the waiting room. If you would like to speak.
Yeah, anybody who would like to, who has not spoken, would like to speak, please raise your hand. And if you are shy about speaking, you can always put in a item in writing. Your concerns and thoughts and recommendations in writing. I would say one thing about one of the comments that was raised just now, and that is, yes, we agree. We do need to make the process faster, and at our end, whatever we can do, we will. And one of the recommendation was not to require DOB objections. You know, I understand where this suggestion is coming from, and it. However, I think what I want to be absolutely clear to with everybody is that there are pros and cons to many of these recommendations. And as I mentioned earlier, is the purpose of fast tracking is not to overlook all the rules and regulations and allow for a development which will which may get through the process at BSA, but will get stuck at a process either at HPD's a final review stage or at DOB when it comes to issuing the work permit, because BSA would only waive the actions that is very specifically cited in the objection sheet, and nothing more than that. Anything else would be as of right, and BSA will not waive that. So should an assessment is overridden at a DOB, and it is based on the certification of the project architect, that this meets all the other requirements, so be it. We can proceed with that. However, just be prepared that if there is any issue further down the road, post BSA approval, it will require an amendment and of the BSA approved documents. And that unfortunately may take away the time process that we are trying to avert. So I want all of us to go into this fully knowing that the ultimate goal is to provide affordable housing in the fastest possible manner, yet at the same time being true to all the regulatory controls and governing principles. And we are trying to find that balance.
We have a Jeff Geary in the hearing room. We have a Crystal Carlton. If you would like to speak, you may unmute yourself.
I'm just listening in, sorry. No
No
comment.
apologies. Thank you.
I was asked our council to put the link that we just discussed, and from this link, you can access the proposed rulemaking and also the presentation that Council Vine gave. So
The presentation is actually available on the board's website.
we can just, how do we change this? Okay. Okay. All right.
Seeing nobody else present in the room who would like to speak on this proposed rulemaking at this time, and seeing nobody present in the Zoom waiting room who would like to speak at this time, the board is going to take a break. Oh, we have one hand. I'm going to admit Mr. Geary.
Okay, so I just had a I am an architect. So I've had familiarity with working with the board on various projects. Not an expert, I don't claim to be. But I have had experience with the board. The process is has been quite lengthy in the past. Some projects, stretching over years' time, and I fully understand this we're getting into. But it seems like there's a fast track. If I'm understanding this correctly, and the BSA is involved with this sort of fast track. What does fast track mean at BSA? Is there are they carving out special time as part of this process that says, all right, you guys are going to dedicate X amount of time when these come in? Like, do they get top priority, or is it going to the regular BSA review queue? Am I misunderstanding this?
Okay. While Council Vine is going to put the screen on the screen, the timeline.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That's part of the presentation.
Yeah, part of the Charter 668D1, it very clearly specifies a timeline within which the board has to make a decision. And as it indicates, if everything is perfect, then after the first hearing, we can close and make a decision in 30 days after the first hearing. So, which almost kind of roughly adds up to about 125 days or so. And if there are some additional corrections and things that need to be made or findings that need to be finalized, then the charter very clearly says the board has another 60 days within which it has to hold a hearing and close and decide. So those are the only two options that's given. What that means is that there is a good part of the work that that means that the findings that are outlined in 666A has to be very clearly adhered to by the applicants at the time of filing. If those items specifically are not provided at the time of findings, it would be impossible for anybody to meet this timeline. So the purpose of this rulemaking is to kind of give everybody an idea of what it is before us. And we are going to take these comments and address that in our rulemaking and correct those. But it means some of this work would have to be done prior to filing. That means getting the HPD letter. That would be that, as stated in our rulemaking, we would need that HPD letter from the applicant before at the time of filing. We recognize HPD is a very important agency which is involved with many facets of housing development and preservations, and they have a robust pipeline of projects, and it does require quite a bit of involvement of HPD's different agency, different divisions. So getting that review process, and those are going to be also those are discussions we are having ongoing discussions with agencies, and we feel we can reach a very amicable situation where we can fast track HPD's initial review process to get us to that finding that 66A requires in order for this procedure to start. We are very much aware of that timeline. HPD is too, and there is a commitment on all city fronts to make sure these fast track projects happen in the manner that is stated to be faster.
And additionally, Mr. Geary, to answer your question, so this timeline is only for applications filed jurisdictionally subject to 666A. This timeline doesn't apply to other actions before the board. But to echo the chair, as you're aware, many applications, all applications before the board are subject to seeker and environmental review, and some seeker processes are much lengthier than others. The timeline under 668D1 commits the board to rendering its final decision within 120 or
180.
or 180 days after filing. And that decision is either an approval or a denial or a dismissal. If there are open issues such as seeker, the board pursuant to this timeline must render its final decision. And if those open issues couldn't have been resolved within that timeline, it means that the board can't approve the application. 150, apologize.
I was just realizing my calculation.
Not a mathematician. So the board's proposing these rules to that effect to ensure that the copy of the application that's getting filed at BSA and reviewed by the board is the same copy of the application that's going to the CB. And the timeline after that initial hearing doesn't allow substantive permutations to the application that would really justify a new review by the community.
In the past, we'd work with, whenever I submitted something to the BSA, I'd work with some members prior to like getting approval to submit. So is there a pre-application, the application filed is like a hard start, but is there a pipeline prior to application filed, like a desk or a portal? Is there a portal created in BSA to do this digitally, or is it still, hand delivered? Is there any mechanism for sorry.
That is one thing I can very clearly say, Mr. Geary, that BSA is all electronic. We hardly deal with any papers. So even we do have a lot of our applications today do have, I wouldn't say a lot, mostly variance applications and some special cases. We do have pre-app, as we call informational meetings with prospective applicants. And the purpose of those informational meeting is to really guide the application team. What are the timelines, deliverables, and how the process will proceed, and guide them through the process, that including the providing guidelines as to the environmental review timeline, and especially in the case of deference applications and variance applications for housing, We work closely with HPD in ensuring that HPD is aware of this project and the timelines and the deliverables at HPD. And we work with the applicants and notify the applicant and the team and HPD of the requirements. This is what we have been doing for much of our variance difference cases with regards to affordable housing. So I see that being a very critical, and we have been successful, I would say. Much of our recent approvals that we have gone through have been successful because of this informational meeting that we held with the applicant team, where we gave them the guidance of what would work, what would not work, what they need to do, and procedurally how they need to follow all the requirements of the environmental review and the HPD to be able to meet a timeline that would be faster than what we have seen in the past. And I'm talking about in the last year or two. And those have borne success. And we would improve upon it even more so because it is even more required for us to tighten our belts and make it faster. And the comments that we are receiving here are very helpful, and we will look at some of them to see how we can truncate the process, the application process at BSA even more where possible, again, without sacrificing any of the regulatory requirements that we have to adhere to.
Yeah.
But yes, the board is prepared to, upon adopting the final version of this rule, whatever that does look like, issue an administrative notice to clean up any questions and offer additional guidance. For instance, if a building is in a landmarked district or a historic district, the admin code prevents the board from approving an application prior to receiving a certificate of appropriateness or other landmarks approval. These are things that board staff would like the opportunity to identify prior to an application being filed to ensure that it can meet this rigorous timeline.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, the pre-meetings always seem the best to avoid any pitfalls, and that'd be terrific. And the last time I did, I had to go in that room and stamp 17 sets for Manny. So that'd be great that we don't have to do that anymore. That's the last one we did. Thank you.
Yeah, I think pre-COVID, we already had gone electronic.
I know. I only get to hear Manny. I don't even or Tony. I don't get to see them and say hello. But at least I don't have to find parking and schlep over the bridge. But thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Geary. We also have someone in the waiting room, Daniel Vislaki. I will admit you. You may speak if you'd like to.
Thank you. I'm just listening.
Okay, thank you so much. Break slide.
Yeah.
Take a 1 hour break till noon, and we'll know that the process is still, the hearing's still
We
continuing.
will keep monitoring. I mean, let's.
Well, we
yeah.
just have to say at what time we're gonna come back.
Let's.
So they know how long that they're gonna wait for.
Let's wait till 11 and then we'll take a 15-minute break and we will check again. We'll do it
I'm
every.
saying we should just put the slide at 30 and then 11:30. If there's no one there, we'll say,
Okay,
all right, no
that's
one's
fine.
here.
That's fine.
So seeing as there's nobody else in the room at this time who would like to present or participate, or in the Zoom hearing room online, the board is going to take a brief break from this hearing. The waiting room is still active. The room is still open. We will be monitoring. We will come back live online at 11:30 to allow any members of the public who have attended in person who would like to speak, or who have joined the Zoom room. That will be their opportunity to speak, and we will monitor the room accordingly.
Thank you so much.
I got it. We're resuming the April 1st public hearing for the Board of Standards and Appeals rulemaking. Thank you to the members of the public who have been patient. We have nobody present in the room right now to testify or to speak, but we do have members of the public who have been patiently waiting. First, I will recognize one member of the public. When you can speak, you'll have 3 minutes. Just state your name, please. Thank you.
Oh, was I being called to speak? I'm sorry, I was having trouble with my connection.
Yes, we can hear you. We can see you. Thank you very much for joining. Just please
Hi.
state your name and
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. My name is Rafael Moy-Pernette. I'm the district manager for Bronx Community Board 6. Thank you to all of those for allowing me to speak. Community Board 6 reviewed the rulemaking that BSA is considering, and we had some concerns. In particular, voters in New York City in November, when they voted for these charter amendments, were intending to vote for affordable housing fast tracks for buildings that were 100% affordable. That's how the Charter Commission presented this proposal to voters. The way that the actual language of the charter was written was that buildings owned by HDFCs would be eligible for the fast track. And these two concepts are not the same thing. An HDFC can own a building and develop a building and put market rates units in the building. And just because it's an HDFC doesn't mean it's all affordable. I've written to HPD, they've confirmed this. I think somewhere along the line, this was conflated. And the board has asked that BSA consider actually requiring 100% affordable buildings to be what makes a building eligible in your rulemaking, because that's not what was written into the city charter, and HDFC ownership is insufficient in ensuring 100% affordability. We're also pleased that the BSA is looking for projects that do not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. That's kind of the language that the BSA has used. We consider that the actual affordability levels in the units be a factor, and that unit size be also considered a factor. I want you to kind of imagine the neighborhood of East Tremont, where my board represents, a lot of rent stabilized buildings where units are 2 and 3 bedroom and moderate rents, and a big building where every unit is a studio and the rents are at 130 AMI would actually alter the character of the neighborhood because it would not be reflective of the rest of the housing stock. And so we ask that the BSA set some kind of rule around AMI where, in a neighborhood like East Tremont, there be some units that are 30% of AMI because that's the income in the neighborhood, at least some of the units, and that there be some 2 and 3 bedroom units because the average household size in this neighborhood is 2.6 people per household. And so we ask that unit size and affordability both be considered in the context. And we also have just concerns about, supportive housing development. We have a lot of projects that are developed as affordable housing and then become supportive housing in the Bronx, where it's advertised as it's going to be a lottery building, and then there's kind of a bait and switch and it becomes a DHS facility. And we ask that the BSA establish some kind of expectations with developers on whether or not that is going to happen and clarification on that, because we have found that HPD does not provide sufficient oversight in that process. And those were our comments for your rulemaking procedure. Thank you very much.
thank you so much. The board will now recognize Andrew Ulbrich. Okay, Andrew Olbrich, if you would like to speak, just raise your Zoom hand and we can recognize you. We'll now recognize Joanna Carr. If there's anyone in the Zoom waiting room who would like to speak, you may raise your Zoom hand. We have also allowed you to speak, so just unmute yourself and state your name. Thank you. Also, if you're watching on YouTube and you would like to speak, you may dial in by calling 669-254-5252. When prompted, enter the webinar ID 160-003-6538 and press the pound button. Press the pound button again. You will be entered into the waiting room. You may press *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute.
Good morning. My name is Joanna Carr. I came in late at the meeting during the break, but I do not wish to speak. I was just listening. Thank you.
Thanks so much for attending. We're going to keep the hearing live for 5 more minutes before the board takes another break. So if there's anyone watching or listening in and you'd like to participate now, 5 minutes before the board will be taking a lunch break and resuming again this afternoon. We're approaching 11:45 at this time. Seeing as there's no one present in the room who wants to speak on this application at this time, and there is no one in the Zoom room additionally who would like to speak, the board is going to take another break from this rulemaking hearing and will resume at 12:45. We will continue to monitor the waiting room online and in person and allow anyone who wants to participate an opportunity to do so. Thank you very much.
We're live. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're back on the record for the proposed rulemaking, public hearing, affordable housing fast track in City of Yes. Should you wish to comment on this application, you can dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you'll enter the Weber ID number 160-003-6538 and press the pound sign. At the next prompt, you'll press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you press star 9 to raise your hand, star 6 to unmute as you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room ready, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, you will have 3 minutes in which to comment on this rulemaking.
We have had no additional attendees to our hearing room. And there are no new attendees in the Zoom waiting room. We will keep the live public hearing going for a few more minutes before we take another break. is 110.
And there's no one.
There is nobody else in the room who has indicated that they would like to speak today. No one else has joined our Zoom hearing. At this time, if the board would be comfortable concluding today's public hearing session on our April 1st rulemaking. Continued hearing on this matter will be scheduled not within 30 days of today. So after May 1st, notice of a public hearing will go out accordingly. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, for your public comments. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
This concludes the April 1st rulemaking hearing for the Board of Standards and Appeals.